Hello and welcome back to the Creepy and Weird podcast. This is our second episode. So if you watched the first one, hopefully you're here at this one. And today our topic are horror movies.
Yes, and we'll be discussing some of our own favorite movies and some of our sort of shared mutual favorites.
So starting with my top 5 movie pick for my list, I have to cite Peter Jackson's The Frighteners. I love this movie. I know a lot of people who have always been wishy-washy on it, but I always thought it's great. It's a 1996 horror comedy film filmed by Peter Jackson, starring Michael J. Fox, D. Wallace Stone, Jake Busey. And yeah, I think the story's great. I love it. And I don't mind the beginning where, going into the story, you meet Michael J. Fox's character, and he's this paranormal con man pretty much, but he's not. He does see dead people. He really does. He just uses them to make money. And and I think that that nice little that comedy element kind of like, gets you comfortable. So, when you get to the second act in the movie, when you get the real introduction to Jake Busey and D. Wallace Stone's serial killing couple characters, and he's dead. I think it's really, it's a little bit of element of surprise. And I also forgot Jeffrey Combs. Jeffrey Combs is in it too. And, I loved him in it. I thought him and Michael J. Fox actually played really good off of each other. But yeah, that's that's my number 5 pick.
Yeah, we gotta get Jeffrey Combs in there, right?
Yeah. And that was why I thought, okay, well, in The Frighteners, he's in it. So just proves that I don't hate Jeffrey Combs.
Yeah.
Going to apologize in advance tonight in the event that I have a feline invader. My cat got pretty sick a few days before Halloween and had to go to the emergency vet, and he was at the vet for a few days, and he just came home today. So he's pretty affectionate and happy to be home.
He needs love and affection. Yeah.
He does. And sometimes he likes to try to be my co-host.
Understandable. Okay, so on the topic of Jeffrey Combs, I'm going to pick Reanimator as my number 5. And it is loosely based on H.P. Lovecraft's Herbert West Reanimator. And I think it's one of the more fun sort of Lovecraftian movies out there, and I enjoy the sort of over the topness of some of it, and the green glowing goo and such.
I just think of the head.
Yeah, and the reanimated head and things like that.
That infamous scene.
As the title suggests, it's Herbert West is a mad scientist type that brings the dead back to life.
Jeffrey Combs is great, though. So now at our number 4 spot, my pick is Dog Soldiers. It's a 2002 action horror film directed by Neil Marshall. You might know him from, some episodes of Game of Thrones that he directed, or his movie The Descent. It also stars Sean Pertwee and Leon Cunningham, who also was in Game of Thrones. And I don't know have you ever seen this movie?
No.
It is fun. It is a lot of fun. It's another like that. There is the action. It is action horror, but it also has some black comedy in it, and it at times it reminds me very much of Sam Raimi's Evil Dead 2, with the way some of the humor is. But we have a group of Scottish soldiers. They are out in the Highlands, and they're on like a field exercise, and they have a choice encounter with shit. They aren't Scottish soldiers. I'm sorry, they're British, but they're still out in the Scottish Highlands. My brain's not in it today. Oh, I'm sorry. So, anyways, yes, British soldiers, and they're out doing a field exercise and encounter some werewolves. So it's a great werewolf movie, and it is a lot of fun. It's action, it's comedy, it's horror, it's great, and it poses the question, as to, or it gives you the answer as to why you don't shoot the dog.
You shouldn't shoot the dogs, yeah.
Shouldn't shoot the dogs. Never shoot the dogs, unless it's Cujo.
Well,
There is that one exception, and Old Yeller.
so, moving on, my number 4 is Werner Herzog's version of Nosferatu. And possibly just because I want Herzog on my list, because I fucking love that guy. But, and I also, fucking love Klaus Kinski, so, gotta pick a Kinski Herzog movie. And I think, this is one, I was watching, the documentary My Best Fiend, and that's, it's a pun that works in both English and German. My best friend, Fiend, you move the letters around, is like, anyway, it's a documentary about Herzog and Kinski, and it was just wild, these two, and the thing about Nosferatu, I mean, he didn't do a whole lot of horror stuff, but Nosferatu is very visually pleasing with the lighting and such, and mood, and just the cinematography and things are really beautiful, and Isabella Adjani is very pretty. Kinski, with the shaved head, plays Nosferatu. I think I read that everyone was very high the whole filming process, so like, if they look like really spaced out and shit, it's because they fucking were high, and but it's great though, because it sort of feeds into the mood, and I just fucking love Herzog. Just something.
I was
about
actually just talking with someone the other night about this version of Nosferatu.
Mm-hmm.
So now to our number 3. My pick is Rob Zombie's 31. This is, I know my list has had like a lot of newer movies, but I still hold the classics near and dear to my heart. But as times change and we change, this has been my lately, over the past couple of years, these have been my picks. But yeah, Rob Zombie's 31 came out 2016, and I mean, it's what you would expect from a Rob Zombie movie. It's gritty, gory, but I actually like the story for this, and I thought that there were some really good acting performances. Richard Brake was just great as Doomhead. Also, we had, E.G. Daily. I don't know why, but I really actually found her appearance in this movie really amusing. Along with Meg Foster. I don't know why I just totally blanked on her name, but Meg Foster's in it too. So it's another Malcolm McDowell and a few other people. So it's one of those Rob Zombie like cult alumni casts, and featuring also Sherry. But the whole point is a group of carnies are traveling to their next spot, and on Halloween night, they get abducted by this random group of people who put them in a death maze. And they have to either survive or get murdered by the various heads that live in this, that kill people in this maze. It was one of those, I have Shudder, and when it first came out, it was, like one of the Shudder exclusives, and I was like, oh, I didn't even realize this was a thing. And so I ended up watching it and loved it. Every other time, if I'm just need random noise, I'll put 31 on and then just go about doing my domestic chores.
I had to think hard about it, but I would choose Gates of Hell, also known as City of the Living Dead, by Lucio Fulci, because I felt like I needed a Fulci film on here, because he's just one of those directors, where I guess one could call him an auteur, in that you watch his movies and you really know, like, this is a fucking Fulci movie, and it just has its own way of doing things. And I know some people really hate him because of that, but because dialogue can get really weird, and whoa, wood coming into the eyes and zombie and so on. That's a bit painful, but
That's
just his
always been
overall
my
style. Mm.
that's always been my downfall with Fulci movies. It's always the eyes.
I just really enjoy the interplay of, like, the just the doom and gloom, along with the music and the oppressive atmosphere of Fulci movies, and that's why I enjoy him a lot.
So my number 2 pick is House of the Devil. It came out in 2009. It was written and directed by Ty West, and it wasn't his first movie. He had a couple movies before that, I do believe. But The House of the Devil is really good. It's one of those newer movies that, like, a throwback to 80s horror movies, especially, like, this is definitely like one of those Satanic Panic type films. But yeah, no, I love this movie. It has a very small cast. And the plot of the movie is, there's a young girl. She is in college. She desperately needs money, like all college students do, for bills and stuff like that. And she sees a flyer for a babysitting job on Halloween. So she calls, and they offer her, like, I think it was like $200 or $300. Just, it was an offer that she couldn't refuse for, babysitting all night. From there, it's all psychological at that point, like the atmosphere of the movie, even to the, like, the jump scares that aren't really even jump scaring. It's just like normal stuff. And one of the other things I thought was great too is that lended to the atmosphere of the movie was Halloween night, and they have, like, this great hosted horror show on the television with a guy hosting a horror movie. But no, it's definitely, I love that one. And I thought it was great for, coming out in 2009, but just totally capturing the essence of those, 80s films.
Mm-hmm. Which is an era I loved very much.
Yes.
Films. Yes.
Oh, and I should mention too, Tom Noonan is in it. And it also uses that whole thing that, like, oh, based on true events,
Mm-hmm.
sort of thing, even though it's as based on true events as much as, Texas Chainsaw Massacre or, the Amityville Horror are. It's a good attention grabber there.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely, if you haven't checked this movie out, you should give it a watch. And yeah.
Oh, Cemetery Man. And you'll notice behind me, I have it, I can point to it about there. I originally bought, I had to, like, track this down. I bought a movie, or a version with the Italian title Della Morte dell'Amore on eBay, which was like a bootleg with a computer printer cover and things, because I couldn't find it, because that was just the culture in these days, in the early OOs, when you couldn't find a horror movie, you searched it, you couldn't torrent it.
Right.
So sometimes you'd go on eBay and you'd buy, like, shady versions of the things, but that's the way you saw them sometimes. And
I always went to this flea market
mm-hmm.
in Ohio, and there was always, like, a couple tents at least that had, like, various bootleg movies, and some of them were on DVD.
Yep.
And yeah.
But yes, Cemetery Man, it has Rupert Everett with this, like, sort of weird sidekick, and and there's this woman, and well, it's just so messed up, and his friend, I just like the quote when his friend is in the hospital, and he's like, he pulls the ventilator or whatever out, the oxygen, and he's like, Shit. Everything is shit. The only thing that's not shitty is sleep. You know? And then, like, they shoot up the hospital and things. And it's just like a wild ride,
Yeah,
basically. It's just sort of very crazy and has death, an incarnation of death. And that's what I like about that.
yeah, it's definitely. I had fun with it.
Yeah, so bizarre ending, and the whole thing is bizarre.
All right, so my number one pick is yes, we're at the number one, and my pick goes to The Witch, 2015, and it's like I don't even know where to start
Yeah,
with this movie.
yeah, I really enjoyed that too.
This for me, I don't it just it hit horror perfection for me. It had the atmosphere, and and they did great by doing all the period set pieces, even down to the dialect and everything, like, and that caught me off guard when I first, I came into this. I didn't even know what I was watching. It was like, oh, there's a new movie on Amazon, I'm gonna watch this. And yeah, but no, I even have to credit the child actors, and I don't mean like the oh, what's her name, Anna Taylor Joy, who plays Thomason. I'm talking about the other kids, like the younger, the scene with the brother. I really think that is some of the best acting I've ever seen out of a child actor.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm sorry, like, sorry, Linda Blair. There's a new kid on the block, and that kid did great.
Mm-hmm.
He did so good. But yeah, so the general idea, if you're not familiar with the movie, is a Puritan family ends up getting kind of shunned from their community, and they go out to start their own farm, and their entire lives in existence are just shitty. It's shitty. And of course that means it's the fault of witches. When your life goes shitty, it's the witch's fault. However, some weird things start to happen that kind of make you go, maybe it is the witches. Once we have the disappearance of the baby, which is another great scene. Like, I wasn't even expecting that. Like, oh god, the baby's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, even like the ending, it's just down to the very end. And Thomason wasn't, she wasn't setting out to be bad. She was kind of pushed into that position where after dealing with this insanity with your religion crazy family, uh being a witch is a way better alternative. So, but yeah, it is my number one pick. My cat actually got his name from that movie, Black Phillip. And yeah, no, I loved it. The atmosphere was great, the set, everything about it. It was there's nothing I would change. I think it's the first movie I've watched in a long time where I just was like, I can't find any flaws with it. It gave me nothing to complain about, which is good.
And this is going to be a weird choice, but I have as number one, I have David Cronenberg's adaptation of Naked Lunch. And this is for personal reasons rather than being the best horror movie. But
You're like, I like it, damn it.
it's an I like it, damn it. Because, um, well, I just needed some Cronenberg body horror on here at some point. For sure. And also because of how much I like William S. Burroughs' writing. And when the two come together, also,
Is it
Peter Weller.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, yes. Anyway, Peter Weller as the main character, which is based loosely on Burroughs' life. And I watched. I'll have to edit that in. The name of whatever documentary on Burroughs that I just watched. That was narrated by Peter Weller, but there was and But yeah, I watched a documentary recently with Peter Weller in it, and it was just like so awesome how he got into the character and how he and just
He,
stories of his interactions with Burroughs.
right. I think he definitely did good with what he had.
And
Or,
I
you know
enjoyed.
what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah, sorry.
And I enjoyed the special effects, except that actually, speaking of doing good with what they had, they ran out of money on the scene of Julian Sands like turning into a centipede in a bird cage. That's why it looks so bad. So I never knew that before. I don't know if I heard that on the like
Yeah, I thought
Criterion
there was like a
collection thing.
bunch of production problems that
Mm-hmm.
had plagued that movie.
Yeah, but that was one like problem with the special effects. But
Yeah, it's
overall,
definitely.
I just like the sort of the marriage of Cronenberg and Burroughs. I think um, Peter Weller did good with what. See, this is something that I put on in the background. I mean, I thought about saying Videodrome, but I'm like, no. No, I'm gonna
Right.
have to say Naked Lunch.
And I always forget that Peter Weller is RoboCop. I always remember, like, when I think of Naked Lunch, I always think of Julian Sands.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, I remember Julian Sands in that Warlock very vividly. But yeah, I always kind of sometimes just forget Peter Weller. And then it's like, oh, yeah, RoboCop.
And people having sex with typewriters. I mean,
That is like I'm just gonna talk about Cronenberg for a minute because like I have to admit like I'm not always the biggest Cronenberg fan, and here's why. It's not that I dislike him. It's not that I think his stuff is bad. That's not the case. It's that literally his movies end up grossing me out.
mm-hmm.
Like I watch The Fly like this.
Yeah.
I'm like, ugh. I cannot, and it's like and it's good though, and it's kind of great because he does totally nail the whole body horror thing. And one of my favorite movies of his is actually The Shivers, which was like his old like VD horror, and I don't know if you're familiar with that one, but like I love that Cronenberg movie. But I gotta hand it to him, man. His movies are gross.
Mm-hmm. But that's what I like about him.
Yes, and that's absolutely, like I'm like, I've watched so many horror movies, and so have you, to the point where after a while you just get like totally desensitized to it. But when I can like watch a certain movie and it still makes me go ew, you're doing good, and it's still that's one thing that any Cronenberg movie, there's at least going to be a couple scenes where I'm like, oh, I can't watch, and I love him for it.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for watching, and if you like this video, be sure to follow us on YouTube.